Mighty Ape is Australia's entertainment and pop culture superstore with everything from movies, music, games, toys, books, hobbies and more. Mighty Ape is your one-stop shop for the things that matter most. They constantly have hot deals and exclusive promos. And if you visit their website on the click-through banner on fakechef.net's homepage, then your purchase will help support Good Movie Monday. Mighty Ape, Australia's entertainment and pop culture superstore.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning!
Morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
You mean to wish me a good morning? What do you mean that it is a good morning whether I want it or not?
Please go away. Let me speak for the love of God.
Did you listen back to last week's episode or catch the midweek videos?
I haven't seen the midweek videos. I did listen to last week's episode.
So what I reckon we should do is we should probably create a drinking game out of the word phenomenal.
Oh, right. I thought we were going to create a drinking game out of a little film. Every time I say it's a little film by the name of, I think I said it before every single film I mentioned.
I think if we were to take a shot for every time either of us said the word phenomenal, we'd be dead.
Yeah.
But of course, such a drinking game would be highly irresponsible, and we do not endorse such things. But if you want nerdy cinematic ramblings, then you've come to the right place. Thanks for downloading Good Movie Monday. This is the weekly podcast produced by fakeshep.net. My name is Glenn Cochran. I'm the doofus who shepherds you through this boggy marsh. And the simple-minded dimwit beside me is Ben Helwig. Howdy, partner. How's things?
They're phenomenal, Glenn.
Well, cheers to everybody for listening. Howdy to you all. It's always a pleasure to be talking with you. And the reason I'm using words like doofus and dimwit is because we have the long-awaited Bonehead episode for you today. That's right. 3 guys from the Bonehead Weekly will be here to chat about themselves and movies in general. And that's going to be heaps of fun. Now, we may as well jump straight into things before we get onto all of that. We'll have a quick look at some movie stuff that's been happening during the week. Starting with the sad passing of John Saxon. He actually passed away merely hours after we recorded our last episode, so we were kind of gutted that we didn't have a chance to pay our respects in a timely fashion. That was a bit of a blow, hey Ben?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was shocked when I saw the announcement go out on, I think, on Instagram that he had passed, and I couldn't believe it.
I mean, he passed away at the age of 83 years old, which is a good innings, you would say to anybody that sort of got that far in life, but the fact that it came as a shock is a real testament to his legacy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember watching him a couple of years ago in a couple of documentaries, and he seemed incredibly robust and healthy, and like not someone who's kind of like on the precipice or anything. That's why I was completely caught by surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this guy had a really long and illustrious career that saw him grace all of the genres, really, from westerns like The Unforgiven and The Plunderers and Posse from Hell, $1 Too Many, even Joe Kidd with Clint Eastwood, and then to becoming a horror icon in movies like Queen of Blood and The Girl Who Knew Too Much, and of course those fan favorites Tenebrae, Blood Beach, Black Christmas, Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, wow, what a career!
Yeah, he even did a blaxploitation movie in The Glove.
Yeah, I reckon you're right.
Amazing.
I mean, we wouldn't be movie geeks if we left out titles like Enter the Dragon and Mitchell and dare I say Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Like I remember, Enter the Dragon. I think would have been the first thing I ever saw him in, and I remember thinking he was the coolest. He was the coolest dude there. Like Jim Kelly is pretty cool, and Bruce Lee, of course. But for me, it was always all about Roper. Like he played golf, and then he kicked the crap out of some mafia hoods, and then he chose correctly when he's picking out all the prostitutes he's going to sleep with. Or the prostitute, He's like, I'm going to take the madam. You're like, yes, take the one in charge.
Man, I forgot all about that.
It's such a good film, and he is so good in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the fact that he knew absolutely nothing about martial arts at the time, like
that was kind of like that was the regular thing for anyone in martial arts films back in those days that weren't Asian.
Well, Jim Kelly and Bruce Lee were both, they were both kind of experts, and everyone else, Bolo Young and I can never remember the guy's name who played O'Hara, and the main bad guy and stuff, and even like the girl who would go on to play. I'm pretty sure the girl who plays Bruce Lee's sister is the one who goes on to play Sister Street Fighter. No, I'm not 100% sure about that. Don't quote me on that. But I could be getting myself into a lot of trouble by saying that.
Fact check.
But quick to the internet. But so everyone else, but he just like and he said in a couple of interviews that he just told Bruce Lee tried to give him tips and stuff, and he's like, I'm just going to do this like this. What do you reckon? And Bruce Lee's like, yeah, right. Whatever.
Well, that is really sad news. Anyway, he was an absolute legend with a legacy, I guess has equal magnitude. Let's say. Well, just to recap on some news that we spoke about last week. We talked about Tenet and how it was reported to be delayed indefinitely, with the studio also countering that by saying that news of its release would be imminent. I guess when they said imminent, they meant like within a couple of days we're going to announce what we're doing. So like talk about stringing people along. So just real quick, plan for Tenet is it's going to drop theatrically in 70 countries on August 26th, but not in the USA until September 2nd. And even then only in selected cinemas. So there's the update on that. I'm sick and tired of talking about fucking Tenet. So
I think it's because they heard me say I was completely ambivalent to its release.
That's right.
And they went, well, fuck you.
Well, it's because they were throwing out words like indefinitely and imminent, and then you go ambivalent, and they're like, Jesus, like this guy's, we've got to appease this one. How's this for some news? Dave Franco has signed on to star as Vanilla Ice in an upcoming biopic, which is eerie because we only referenced Vanilla Ice on last week's show.
It's a shame, like, people can't see my face right now, but it is lit up.
How often do we get to reference Vanilla Ice? And now 2 weeks in a row.
And I can't think of anyone better to play him. Like, other than, like, a young Jim Carrey, I can't think of anyone better than Dave Franco to play Vanilla Ice in a biopic.
That's because we've seen Jim Carrey do it on In Living Colour.
In Living Colour, yeah. And, and Dave Franco, like... No one plays special needs like Dave Franco.
Well, the news has been rumoured for quite a while in Hollywood, but Franco confirmed it last week in an interview with The Insider. And how's this for a brief synopsis that they've put out? From a high school dropout selling cars in Dallas to having the first hip-hop single to top the Billboard charts with Ice Ice Baby, a young Vanilla Ice struggles with stardom, extortion attempts, and selling out as he makes music history.
I can't wait to see who they've got to play the VIP crew, and who's going to play his bitterest rival, MC Hammer, who's got to make an appearance surely, and who's going to play Madonna because he was in Madonna's sex book.
Oh my god! Well, isn't Franco too old to be playing Vanilla Ice at that part in that stage of his career?
No, they can just. They could just CGI him.
You're a fan of that?
Yeah, they could just put young. They could just retcon him, like young him up.
Yeah, just digitize those train tracks on the side of his head.
All he needs is it's just abs. That's all he needs, just some abs and an affinity for tracksuits.
It sounds a lot like the Eminem film, I must say. And if Eminem's film was 8 Mile, let's call this one 3.5 miles.
3.5 miles. Oh, it'd be amazing.
Well, Dave Franco actually said that he anticipates it to have a similar feel and aesthetic to The Disaster Artist, and that made me think perhaps his brother James might be directing this one and they've just not let on.
Right. Well, I hope it's... I like The Disaster Artist and stuff, but that feels a bit more like a mockumentary. Like everyone's kind of shocked at what's happening in the Disaster Artist. I want this to be played like 100% serious.
Well, I think it would be. I mean, I think it's also the fact that James Franco's been cancelled, so they don't want to put his name on the poster yet.
Right.
But if he's directing this, then I'm really excited because he's a phenomenal director.
He's a talent.
And well, I kind of want to talk about some more, news and things like that, but there's other stuff we've got to get to. So let's just let Guillermo discuss the movie news a bit later on. But Ben, we've got the Bonehead guys coming up. So in a lame attempt to create a segue, I thought we could talk about Bonehead movies.
Lovely. I love Bonehead movies. I'm all about Bonehead movies. I consider myself to be a bonehead.
Well, this is the thing. I'm finding it hard to define. So when I say Bonehead movies, I kind of mean those stoner buddy movies, but not necessarily stoner movies either. The ones like Bill and Ted and Wayne's World, that kind of thing.
Beavis and Butthead, Do America, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, yes. So however you define them, Let's talk about them. Okay, so the obvious one would be Bill and Ted. Wayne's World and Dumb and Dumber coming second and third. Are you a fan of this genre in general?
Yes, indeed. Incredibly. Like, I like to think I've seen all the, except for The Ladies' Man, I've seen all the SNL movies at the cinema. And no one makes better Bonehead movies than the SNL alum.
I think I saw The Ladies' Man at the cinema.
Oh, wow.
What an era that was.
Well, yeah, that was like Don, and I think they just made fun of Don Meadows for being on SNL forever, and then finally he gets his own movie, and it's The Ladies' Man, and it doesn't.
You mean Tim Meadows?
Tim Meadows, sorry, yeah, Tim Meadows.
That's because he did that Don character, Don King.
Don King, yeah. No. I've got the little like video store desktop standy in the other room.
Oh my
For
goodness! Do
ladies'
you remember
night.
the scene in that movie when the old man or lady calls in to talk about her sex life, and he says, "Yeah, well, that's disgusting." One of the best SNL moments ever. So, what would be your go-to Bonehead movie?
Probably a film called The Stoned Age. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I have indeed.
Uh,
Wow.
It is an all-time favorite of mine. I remember I watched it on video. VHS was the first one, so I don't know if it got a theatrical release in Australia or not. But I remember it starred the girl who's on the cover. Her name is Renee something or another. But I remember she was the girl in Showdown in Little Tokyo who is having sex with the main bad guy, and while he's having sex with her, he cuts her head off. And I remember thinking, "My God, like what a role! Like this is like such an unfortunate like she's giving everything to this role, and then they cut her head off, and then she appeared in the Stone Age, and that's why I watched it, and it is by far my favorite kind of stone, and they are stoners, but it like so many kind of cool things came out of that film. And it's directed by the guy who would then, his very next film is the Jerky Boys film.
Right.
The Jerky Boys movie.
Yeah, I remember that.
So he's had, and they're the only two films he's directed. So it's two classic kind of idiot kind of movies.
For sure.
Back to back.
Well, I'm a fan of Dude, Where's My Car?
I do quite like Dude, Where's My Car?
Yeah, I remember when it came out, right? Obviously, everybody shit on it because I don't think anyone comprehended it. I don't think anyone got the joke, or if they got the joke, they didn't appreciate it. But I think now that we've had Harold and Kumar, which was the same director, I think the appreciation for that type of lunacy has sort of, grown. And you go back to Dude, Where's My Car? And it is absolutely hilarious. Like, it is funny.
Like that tattoo scene.
Turning around. Dude, what does mine say?
Dude, what does mine say? Awesome. What does mine say? Dude, what does mine say? Like, it is just like, you could put that on a loop in the video store and just be cracking up laughing for hours.
I wish I had done that.
Oh, when they go through the drive-through and the old lady's like, and then? It just...
Well, you can't say that film didn't have an impact because nearly everybody on Earth went through drive-throughs saying and then and would just put that into regular conversation.
Yeah, like totally. It was a defining film, even though at the time I remember like it got so much flack. It copped so much flack as being like totally stupid. But it was, I put it up there with any of the kind of Farrelly Brothers comedies. I think it was just people didn't really like Ashton Kutcher.
What are some other ones? I'm thinking there was one that I adored in the 90s that I haven't seen in a long time. It was called Meet the Deedles.
Oh, yeah.
Which had a very young Paul Walker in it.
Yeah, and they've got like blue hair or something on the... Is that on the...
They got blue waves as hair.
As hair, yeah.
Yeah, because they were surfer dudes.
I've never seen it, but I remember seeing the video around all the time.
Look, it just sort of came to my mind then because I haven't really done any looking into it or research. To what I recall from it, there were some very, very big names in it, and I wish I could remember. Perhaps Dennis Hopper, someone of that caliber is in it. Once again, to the Google. Yeah, but Meet the Deedles, I remember it being great, and it's just one that hasn't had any kind of physical release since VHS, so...
Yeah, right.
Just haven't been able to get hold of it.
Would you class Dirty Work with Norm Macdonald as a?
No,
as
I
a
wouldn't. But
bonehead?
that is a bloody great film.
It's a great film. I would class it as one because it is. I mean, they're not going on a road trip, but they're just a bit older than you would normally
Well,
kind of put into
Norm Macdonald is your like middle-aged bonehead, isn't he? Like
He totally is.
he's the intellectual bonehead.
Yeah.
Oh God, I love Norm. Well, he has officially been cancelled now, so.
Oh, has he? I didn't know.
Yeah, there's a great video you want to watch him on The View. You know that terrible show with Whoopi Goldberg and whatnot, where they're trying to tell him to stop saying what he's saying because he's about to ruin his own career, and he just tramples all over it. He does not give a shit. I love the man. And Netflix cancelled his show because of it, you know?
Right.
Anyway, well, let's reel off a few more before we move on. I'd say Jay and Silent Bob are fairly heavyweights when it comes to the bonehead genre. Not a huge fan. Harold Kumar. Encino Man?
I guess, yeah. Encino Man kind of fits into that category. What about something like Dazed and Confused? I don't know.
I mean, that's a stoner movie. It's sort of, we're breaking away from the buddy kind of aspect of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing about Dirty Work is, you know, they're not stoners, but people who watch it are usually.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
You know, it's. What about How High? I mean, that's definitely a stoner film.
It's been a long time since I've seen that. Jeez, yeah, well, I guess so. What about? Do you remember? There's a movie. I think one of Penelope Spheris's early ones called Dudes.
The Dudes, yeah, which I think played at Myth.
Oh, really?
I think it was last year or the year before.
Oh, because she passed away, so they would have done a retrospect.
I think they did a retrospective, yeah. And that hasn't. I think that's only just recently come out on Blu-ray or something like that because it hadn't been seen for a while. It kind of disappeared. Wow.
Well, anyway, I want to talk about this for a whole lot longer, so we might add this to the list of things to come back to because there's so much more to flesh through. But we've got the Bonehead guys coming up, but first, let's throw to Jarrett, whose job of rifling through new releases is getting harder and harder every week. But I think he's onto some good stuff this week, and we'll be back shortly.
Do you mind if I just... Can I go to the toilet while this is that something that... Can I just...
Yeah,
okay. Sorry, mate. It's a bit of an emergency.
All right.
Hey, this is Jarrett and welcome to PE Class. It's a great week for home entertainment this week as there are a ton of releases hitting home entertainment. That's correct. A ton of releases hitting both DVD and Blu-ray and titles new and old. So let's kick off with Shock. They've got a hectic amount of John Wayne westerns hitting disc. These are all taken from the Paramount catalogue, and they include Hatari, The High and the Mighty, Hondo, Island in the Sky, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. The last one is in fact going to hit Blu-ray as well. Then there's more Jerry Lewis that's been taken from the Paramount catalogue and being released to DVD, and 2 titles in fact being released to Blu-ray also. Those titles include Cinderfella, Money from Home, Rockabye Baby, and Caddy. It's Money from Home and Rockabye Baby that will also be appearing on Blu-ray. Then Umbrella have a flood of releases, and they're all great releases coming out from Umbrella this week. We've got Art of Self-Defense, which was one of my favourite films of last year. It stars Jesse Eisenberg and Imogen Poots, who you may remember actually acted opposite one another in Vivarium that came out on home entertainment about a month ago. This is a pitch-black comedy that deals with toxic masculinity, and it is both hilarious and cringeworthy. I thoroughly recommend it. Then there's Blood Vessel, I don't want to spoil too much about this movie, but essentially it's an Australian horror film set on the high seas during World War II, and it's got some fantastic creature effects. We played it at Monster Fest all the way across Australia last year, and now it's hitting home entertainment loaded with special features, including 2 audio commentary tracks, so that's really something. Then Clue, that 1985 whodunit comedy with Tim Curry, amongst others, is hitting home entertainment. It's been out on DVD before locally, but it's making its Blu-ray debut locally this time around, and it's also being reissued on DVD. Then there's Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street. It's a documentary on Nightmare on Elm Street 2's Mark Patton. This is a terrific documentary that played the Melbourne Queer Film Festival earlier this year, and I had an opportunity to check it out, and I really enjoyed it. It's a genuinely insightful and an emotional documentary told by Mark. It's definitely worth checking out. Then the last release that's coming out from Umbrella this week is VHS. Now this is directed by Jack Henry Robbins. He's the spawn of Tim Robbins and Susan Sarandon. This is a completely bizarro comedy that's shot entirely on VHS, and you definitely need to see it. Anyway, that's it for me this week. Until next time, stay physical.
You will all know the Bonehead Weekly because I reference it every week on the show. But if you're a newcomer, then let me give you the basic rundown. Bonehead Weekly is a podcast hosted by three mates in Kentucky, and while the usual show takes place on a sofa in a basement, their current MO, much like ours, is by way of Zoom conference call. They've recently joined us here at Good Movie Monday with their own fun-size segment, and right now they're waiting in the wings for me to introduce them to you all. Typically, this is where I would throw to them, but these aren't three regular guys. They're three boneheads. And they're fucking smartasses, and they hang shit on Australia, so screw them. Let's keep them waiting. Instead, let's throw to Scarefest.
This Friday, we're joined on Scarefest Television by Heather Dobson, author of Memoirs of a Future Ghost. We will be talking ghost hunting, obituaries, and meeting the afterlife head on. Join us live at 9 p.m. Eastern at scarefestradio.com or on Facebook and Twitter by following the Scarefest.
All right, so I won't keep you waiting any longer. Without further ado, it's time for a song. We'll catch you on the other side. And how is that for short and sweet? That song was called Bonehead by Adult Dude. And speaking of adult dudes, here's three boneheads for you. Joe Lewis, Chad Jennings, and James Thomas. Guys, it's about time you're on the show. How the hell are you?
So which wings were we waiting in? The one with Stephen Wright or the Paul McCartney one?
Oh,
They're going to try and derail this, but I'm not going to.
I'm sorry. I'm ashamed.
Before we go any further, let's get one thing out of the way. Aussies do not drink Fosters.
That was a Joe Lewis. I know you drink kangaroo blood, and that's it.
yeah, basically. And it's well known that I'm an idiot. So, would anyone really listen to me?
It's amazing that we've got this reputation for Fosters.
It's just because of marketing in the States, man. That's all there is.
I was about to say, I'm just shocked that you're accusing American marketing of not being 100% honest all the time.
I actually got told off by an Australian at Salt Lake City, Utah once, and he wasn't trying. This is a true story. I'll make it real short. And he actually looked at me and he goes, honestly, I know more about your country than most of you fucking Americans do.
We take this shit seriously.
And he said it really nice, and he had your accent, so it was really hard to get pissed at him. It wasn't until later I was thinking, what a douche.
Yeah, I would say that. So, guys, Bonehead, how did that come about?
Oh, the title Bonehead?
Yeah.
Yeah, we never actually discussed it, did we, guys? It was always Bonehead because if Chad wants to start about it at college.
In college, one of the things I was allowed to do, my teacher let me produce my own comedy show that aired on the campus
Under restraining orders.
and I called it
was a
Bonehead.
different time.
Bonehead Television because just from a background, I had a little niece at the time. I still do, but she was 4 years old at the time, and I would call her Snotface.
Hold on, let me make it creepy. Now she's all grown up.
So anyway,
There we go. Keep going.
yeah. Anyway, sorry, that's a Snotface. I would call her Stinkface, and she'd go, "I love you too, Uncle Bonehead." So that's why I called it Bonehead TV. And then me and Joe kind of stuck with that title, and then James entered our lives again, unfortunately. And then this came along, and we just said it's Bonehead.
Yeah, honestly, with the pain in the ass was not the Bonehead part. It was the second part because we started out as Bonehead Human. We wanted to just call it Bonehead, and you can't because there's so much shit called Bonehead.
Yeah, every Twitter handle, everything that we went after, it constantly kept saying, no, taken. We thought about Bonehead Radio because it's going to be a podcast, so it was going to be audio. That's taken. And so, yeah, Joe's right. We couldn't. Everybody wants to be a Bonehead.
Yeah, it does.
Well, yeah, and go ahead.
No, well, we were already doing it.
We were Bonehead.
Fuck you, Chad. We were already doing it weekly. And then I've got to tell a story. So we switched it, a year into it, boys? It went from Bonehead Humor to Bonehead Weekly because of a friend of ours, Nick Strawn, was a production designer, and he called up Chad and said, "You guys, I'm trying to help you get guests, but you got to change that fucking title." Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we were trying to get movie people, like set designers and production people, and they're like, "Well, I'm not a comedian. I don't want to do the show. I don't want to. I'm not funny. I'm not. And I don't want them to make fun of me." And so we were like, "Yeah, okay."
And we still couldn't come up with a name. And then our producer, like one day in the basement, our former producer said, "Well, what about Bonehead Weekly?" And then the light shined down from the heavens. We're like, "Oh my god."
It works. Well, speaking of set designers, I want to know, like, your show in its original basement format is more or less a layman's version of Wayne's World. Let's face it. So, which one are you? Who's Wayne? Who's Garth? And who's Cassandra?
I never thought of it, but yeah, I'm Cassandra.
If anybody's got no.
If anybody's got the tits, it's me. Is what he wants to say.
I'm obviously not good. I can't be either because I don't have the hair, but I would probably be more towards Garth, and James would be Wayne because he's the more intelligent one.
That's a sad standard that we've established.
Now, I know you want to say something there, Joe, but before you do you reckon they should make Wayne's World 3?
No.
Absolutely not.
But I didn't know that we needed another Bill and Ted, so I'm not going to be a popular person.
We needed another Bill and Ted's.
We need another Bill and Ted. I saw the full trailer. I am so pumped.
The most recent trailer for that looks amazing.
By the way, I love the fact that family comes through in that trailer when they're in hell, and they're like, "Well, how are you doing?" "Well, we're in hell." "But no, how are you doing?" I love that scene. I was like, "No, I'm sold. I'll be there."
So, Joe, you were trying to get something out a minute ago.
It wasn't important.
And you don't want him to get anything out.
But I will. Really quick, you guys mind me telling what Mick had a great suggestion after we changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Oh, great, weekly. Only you'll spell it Weakly." I was like, "Well, fuck, we already changed it to weekly. We didn't even think of that."
We did all the registration forms now.
So you guys host panels at conventions, right? How did you score that?
I tell you, I mean, no disrespect to the other two, but I do it a little bit more than the other two. It's hard to explain. It's one of those things where.
And Joe froze.
He froze. He's never looked.
Fascinating.
There's it never worked for you. Does that make sense? How do you get into it? What'd you say?
Absolutely makes sense.
Fuck you, Chad. The short story is Scarefest was owned by a lady before the Griffiths, and we knew each other at passing, but she was trying to get someone to moderate panels. They didn't do it before. And then instead of me knowing her and her asking, a guy I taught in class, in a community college class 10 years before that, or many, many years before that, was doing IT work for her and goes, "There's a guy. And I work with his wife, and you probably should talk to him." And that's how it happened. And it just... Oh, shit, I hit the mic. It just...
Who are some guests that you have hosted panels for?
Oh, man. George Romero, Greg Grunberg. Oh, what's the chick from... I'm terrible. I am absolutely terrible with names. Some of the bigger ones have been the Doctor Who's, like Billy Piper and what's her name from Guardians of the Galaxy? And
But she's
hosted
never
them.
going to do our show now because you referred to her as.
But he's also did.
no, you know who I'm talking about. Actually, we ended up talking about her horror movies, Oculus, after the panel, and I can never remember her name. Everybody in that room was so Jonathan Frakes. I could just go on and on.
You look
and
a bit
on.
like Jonathan Frakes.
Yeah, Chuck Norris, Lee Majors, Jonah.
Yeah. Lee Major, yeah. But oddly enough, when Frakes did with the panel we did with Frakes, he actually gave some information about Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek, which was going to happen at the time, or it looked like it would happen more.
Yeah,
and we ended up on Trek.com, James, or something like that. And I had to reach out to them because they gave credit to everybody but me.
Wow.
They switched the story, though. I said, well, thanks, but could you do it? And they did switch the story, but there's been a ton of them.
What's happening, everybody? Guillermo here from ScreenRealm.com. Let's go through a few stories real quickly this week. Stranger Things star Millie Bobby Brown continues to add to her projects at Netflix. Apart from Stranger Things, the upcoming Enola Holmes film, and a film called A Time Lost, based on an original story she wrote with her sister. Here's the latest. Brown will star in an adaptation of The Girls I've Been, an upcoming YA novel by author Tess Sharp. Brown will be playing a bisexual con artist. The film has been described as a twisty, exhilarating thriller that will have Brown playing Nora, a con artist who must use her powers of persuasion and impersonation to get herself, her girlfriend, and her ex-boyfriend free during a hostage situation at a bank. There's a new Mafia series on the way, which is interesting enough news, but it becomes hugely exciting when you look at the talent behind it. Showtime is currently developing a new mob series that comes from Boardwalk Empire creator and The Sopranos executive producer, Terrence Winter. Winter also wrote Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street. Also behind the series is Goodfellas and Casino author / co-screenwriter Nicholas Pileggi, hopefully I pronounced that right, and big-time producer Brian Grazer. The still untitled hour-long drama series is inspired by a detailed chronology of organized crime in the US, written by Pileggi, with a plot focusing on the Mafia's first family. The narrative will encompass the country's history of corruption. The much talked about Snyder Cut had a spotlight during the Comic-Con online event, and Snyder himself dropped a few interesting comments when asked if anything of the previous cut of Justice League, which was finished by Joss Whedon, would be in the Snyder Cut. He said, "There would be no chance on earth that I would use a shot that was made prior after I left the movie. I'd destroy the movie, I would set it on fire before I would use a single frame that I did not photograph." He added, "I literally would blow that effing thing up if I thought for a second. Anything you see in this movie which reminds you of that other theatrical release, which famously I have not literally ever seen, would be because that was a thing I had done and he borrowed it for whatever that monster that you guys saw in the theater." Combine those comments and the fact that Whedon has been coming under fire of late for allegedly bad behavior on the set of Justice League, and it's very easy to read into some bad blood with those Snyder comments. Amy Adams has signed up to star in an interesting sounding film called Night Bitch. Adams will also be producing the film, which will have her playing a former artist who's thrust into stay-at-home domesticity after the birth of her son. And wait for it, she becomes increasingly worried and convinced that she may be turning into a dog. That about does it for me, guys. An extra quick one this week. Be sure to jump on ScreenRealm.com for the latest movie, TV news, trailers, reviews, all that jazz. Thanks for having me. I'm out.
Well, do you guys want to play a game of rapid fire? This is something we do on the show from time to time where I just shoot really random questions at you.
Yeah, it's Brady, and it is Brandon Lee's best movie.
Yeah, he never made The Crow. Well, The Crow killed his career. Too soon?
What's the Showdown in Little Tokyo? I think that's his best one.
Oh, Showdown in Little Tokyo is good.
Really?
All right, so I'm going to throw random questions. I'll say your name first, and then you just answer. So, Joe, Transformers or Voltron?
Transformers, but I hate the movies.
Chad, why haven't they made Under Siege 3?
Because nobody wants to see Steven Seagal anymore. If they could somehow find a way to resurrect Tommy Lee Jones' character,
or Erica Linnea Express, so I remembered her name.
So James, Caravan of Courage or Battle for Endor?
Oh, Battle for Endor. Yeah, hands down.
Joe, what's the first movie you remember seeing?
In the theater or all together or what?
Altogether.
Altogether. Porky's at a drive-in 1982. I would have been 4 years old. I can remember Porky's, the shower scene. My parents had me in the back.
Have you read my script? Because, Chad, what's the better double feature, Porky's 1 and 2 or Porky's 1 and 3?
Porky's 1 and 2.
I got to hear the answer because I haven't seen 2. Or I don't remember.
I don't remember 3, so that's why I'm saying Porky's 1 and 2. And by the way, and to jump in on my previous question, they did make Under Siege Part 3. It's called Executive Decision.
Lame.
I'm sorry.
I agree. That was
Was it worth going back for?
No, because I was sitting here going, well, he did a train, he did a boat, so he has to do a plane. I'm like, oh, he already did a plane. I'm shutting up.
That he got sucked out of 20
And
minutes
that's the
into
best
it.
way for his Steven Seagal movies to go.
James, chip packets in the cinema. Thoughts?
They're very crinkly. Yeah, I don't think we need that. There's, I actually don't think other people besides me should be allowed in the cinema.
That's a good point. A former host of mine on the show used to say the only thing you should have in a cinema to eat are marshmallows in a pillow sack.
Which, oddly enough, is how I eat my marshmallows. Who knew?
So, Joe, what's with Warlock 3?
I don't have an answer for that shit. I will tell you a story. Julian Sands, I did his panel 2 years ago, and Julian Sands, at the end of the panel, started reciting
It was
poetry.
Shakespeare.
Was it
It's King
Shakespeare
Lear,
or poetry?
if I'm not
Chad?
mistaken.
It was Shakespeare.
It was sonnets, right?
No, I can't remember. And it was 10 people showed up for that panel, which was a fucking travesty to begin with. And it was like a master's class. And he was the nicest, sweetest gentleman, one of the nicest people I've ever met. And he's just, that's a thespian. Sorry.
So, Chad, what's your favorite Troma movie?
Troma? Oh, man. I'm going to say Toxic Avenger. It's the staple. You can't go wrong with Toxic Avenger.
It's the one they recycle all the footage for, right?
Yeah.
The car flip.
Yeah, the car flip. But if for fun, Sergeant Kabuki Man.
Yeah. James, if you had to recommend one time travel movie to me, what would it be?
Oh, Jesus.
Back to the Future.
You didn't even have to think about that.
No, it is literally the. I mean, I could throw out Star Trek 4, but in all honesty, fun time travel. There's just something about a movie that has a guy almost sleeping with his mother that just says, "Watch this film."
I wish I'd have got that one.
Well, you're welcome to take it. I can edit.
I wish. Listen, Joe.
Time After Time or Time Cop. That should be your double feature.
Time after time.
Sadly, I knew what both of their responses was going to be.
What about Time Cop 2?
I've never seen it.
That's not worth it. But Time Cop takes place on my birthday, so that's cool. It does.
Really? I don't remember.
Like you should. Well done, guys. You definitely qualify. And moving on, another question for all of you. If you could go back in time and just watch one film for the first time in a cinema, what movie would it be?
Ooh.
Just have that feeling of seeing it for the first time with an audience.
I've got one.
I've got one.
So I'll go ahead and go. Mine would be, honestly, this is a two-part for me. One, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, for me. It's one of my favorite movies. I actually did not get to see it in the theater. I would have loved to have gone in the theater and saw it for the first time. Just this movie came out.
I
and boom.
did.
Now, if I
did
could
too.
relive my childhood, the first movie I would see again is Dick Tracy, because I actually got to go to like a secret premiere of that, and they had there was just like this audience who got all these special things. I got like a big pin and a treat bag and a T-shirt. Phenomenal. It was one of the best memories of my
You're
childhood.
like obsessed with that movie the way I'm obsessed with Caddyshack 2.
But Caddyshack 2 is underrated. I
Yes.
actually agree with you
Excellent.
on that. People shit on it a little too much.
I agree with you all
Good.
both of you.
It's not a perfect film, and its problem is it's called Caddyshack 2.
It's a perfect film.
Do you think Jackie Mason brings it down?
No,
it was the horse.
no.
I-
Jackie Mason's
I just wanted
fantastic.
to
Actually.
throw
I
out
mean, it's
Jackie
just,
Mason.
how do you replace Rodney Dangerfield? The only bad performance is Dan Aykroyd, actually.
Yeah.
You do not besmirch the name of Dan Aykroyd in front of me. We've had this conversation.
I know we're getting off topic. Oh, the answer to your question, mine really quick, is I think as a big Star Wars fan, it would have been great to have seen Empire in the theater and find out about him being Luke's dad.
I was anticipating that to be the answer.
I can't imagine being in 1980, because the first film I saw in a legitimate theater was Ghostbusters, and every time Ghostbusters plays in the theater, I messaged you and I was being sarcastic, kind of, but I do go see it, and Empire probably. I don't know, man. It's hard. Evil Dead 2 to Citizen Kane, I love them all.
Well, back to some Bonehead. Tell us more about your early years. Who was your first guest?
First guest overall would have been Ken Boggle. And
Right.
then we follow Ken Boggle up with Mick Strawn.
I know who Ken Boggle is. Tell our
Nick is not our
listeners who
next
Ken
guest.
Boggle is.
Nick is not our second guest. It's Kane. Kane Hodder.
Kane, you're right. Kane Hodder. I skipped Kane.
Kane Hodder. We shot Kane Hodder that Thursday before we shot Mick that Sunday. Sunday.
You're right.
We got 3 episodes out of that one weekend.
And it wasn't just Kane. Technically, it was Kane, Derek Herbert, and I'm forgetting the other
I
gentleman.
forgot the producer's name of the To Hell and Back, the Kane Hodder documentary. We did an episode with one episode basically with Kane and the producer and director. What are you going to?
It was a quick answer, and you all turned it into a 5-minute snooze fest.
Well, because no, I was trying to be accurate. I'm sorry. I got to follow up with what was that master joke he did earlier? The one that he went back to twice. Does anybody remember?
Chad? Are you talking about Chad?
Chad, yeah.
You said master in comparison to Chad, and I lost it. I don't know.
That's true.
Yeah. But Ken Boggle, you asked.
Ken Boggle.
So Ken Boggle had worked with Scarefest for some time and was notable for doing tarot card readings and a lot of other things and some connected to some paranormal things. He has since retired and has taken up painting. And if you're interested, check out he's on Twitter. He occasionally posts his art. I don't know. I think it's unfair that he's talented to where he can be. I'll just paint now, and I look at his paintings and be like, I'm a talentless hack compared to that.
I still, and if he's listening to this, I'm still calling bullshit that it's not paint by numbers. It looks too good.
Even if it's paint by number, have you ever done a paint by number, Joe? Can you paint by number that well?
I don't have any artistic.
Do you know the hardest part?
If it's paint by number,
the hardest part about painting by numbers is actually covering the number.
Probably.
Well,
yeah,
and
but his paintings are amazing. Ken Boggle's a national treasure. We actually did his birthday party. He wanted a roast, and the Boneheads went down with a few others and roasted him. And actually, Chad beat us that night. Chad did a really good job.
Yeah, I'm so glad I went before Chad. I never thought I'd say that, but I was like, oh, please, because I want to follow Chad because people were rolling. I got a couple laughs, and Chad killed them.
Yeah.
So you guys used to have a producer. What would you say is one of the fundamental points of difference to or changes since having one? So being with one and then being without one, what's the big difference?
More work for me.
Or I was going to say, Joe does more work. The organization, she had a lot more planning. Like she wanted to do promos and stuff. We gave that up pretty quickly. We don't, unless it's a major guest. Like we did a promo for Hirsch. Paul Hirsch, right?
Editor of Star Wars.
We did a promo for him because he edited Star Wars and has an Academy Award. We'll give him a promo, but we stopped doing a lot of the promos and things like that simply because there's less of us, and we can go ahead and our next thing is okay. We got this guest, let's find another one. So we're not doing as many of the promos and stuff. But Joe, you want to?
Haley concentrated a lot on the video part of it. And back to our godfather, Mick Strawn. Mick was like, you need to really concentrate on the audio part of it. And I wanted to do both. James wanted to do both. Chad leaned towards just wanting to do audio. So what we did, the first thing we did was throw out multiple cameras and editing all that shit together for YouTube and just doing one static shot. Because I don't think anybody was missing having editing while they're listening to us at their desk on YouTube. Right. So that was the first thing that we threw out. And then made the job a lot easier. But it was I don't know. I was a month catching up, trying to get it right. And I have a degree in broadcasting, but I really hadn't done anything technical except for our short films in a long time. So it was a lot of catch up.
Yeah, right. I mean, I produced this show, and then, as you know now, I do Scarefest Radio, which has a producer. And yeah, there's definitely a lot less work when you've got somebody sort of carrying the weight.
It would. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, the pro is a lot less work turning it over. I would much prefer just to show up and do my dog and pony show and walk out, even though it was always at my house. But you understand what I'm saying. Now, the positive thing to that is there's one less voice in the room.
True.
So instead of arguing with 2 other folks, you have to argue with 3 other folks because you have a producer. And by the way, I give Haley all the credit in the world because I don't know that Bonehead would have started without her. We really needed that, especially for a few episodes. So you could say that she kind of produced the show till we basically got her training wheels and learned how to go on our own. Don't you think that's right, gentlemen?
Yeah. I mean, and to be honest, it hasn't changed much for me. I miss Haley in some ways with her voice and things like that. But really, my job hasn't changed because I don't edit. I show up, I talk, and I don't get paid. It's all the same to me.
Glenn, so do you like
I
producing
love
the
it
show?
because I'm a bit of a control freak, so I like to have that control. But at the same time, like my workload is huge because as well as the show, which I practically work on every night of the week, but I also produce the videos that we put up every week. I produce various other content that's related to it. So yeah, it's just a lot of work. And now I've added the other show for Scarefest on top of all that, so it's a lot of stuff. Plus a day job.
One of the best things that happened, one of the good things with COVID is that, or actually when James moved out of town, was that we could go almost primarily to Zoom, so it makes everything so much easier on the back end. For me, it's really easy just kind of throw one up and put the music and everything at the front of it and at the end of it and just kind of be done with it. So it did make my job a little easier, but you're right, it's something every night, because last night I was putting together, or the other day I was putting together the fun size ones. Those are 6, 7, 8 minutes, depending, and you wanted them cut down to that limit, so you have to go through that. It's just an hour or two here or there, and it takes up a lot of time by the time you realize how much.
I'm really struggling with the Zoom thing because we've had to obviously down here with our restrictions go to Zoom, and I can't have anybody on the desk with me, and that's a massive disconnect for me. Like for interviews like this, not a problem, but when I've got my co-host somewhere else, not here, I can't have that banter and that interaction.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I think I miss us being on the couch.
Yeah, I love you guys on the couch. Love the videos.
Hey guys, it is Adam here from Adam's Just Seen with another Good Movie Monday recommendation. My tagline is Adam 5-star Ross going forward on the show, and guess what? This movie's getting 5 stars. So what am I endorsing this week? I am endorsing Coal Mountain, a movie that maybe, look, some people might not like this movie as much as I do, but they can go and screw themselves, because this is the kind of movie that they just don't make anymore. It is epic, it is intimate, it is sprawling, it is episodic. It has every goddamn actor that's ever drawn breath in its production. You've got everyone from Cillian Murphy to Natalie Portman to Philip Seymour Hoffman. It just keeps going. But centering on Jude Law in an incredible performance, which is, wildly kind of introverted as Inman, a poor fellow who gets on the wrong side of war and then has to trek his way back home to his newfound love, played by Nicole Kidman, in the titular Coal Mountain. Now, this movie is gorgeous. Anthony Minghella here is going for a big, sweeping, epic, romantic tale, and we just, as I said before, we just don't get these movies anymore. There are echoes here of things of like Gangs of New York, things where, if we could build it, we will. If we can make this epic, we will. And it's also, Minghella's doing something very interesting here where he's being very earnest. Renee Zellweger won an Oscar for this film, and that's why I'm doing this silly accent, because she talks like that in this movie. But, the movie's going for it, it's swinging for it, and the accumulative effect of all of this, to me, is constantly overwhelming. I feel like in the best possible way that I've been transported, and it feels like a novel. So it is currently on Stan. It goes for about 2 3/4 hours, so it's long, so strap in. But it's got everything. It's got everything that you could possibly want, and some bad accents. Maybe that's what I'm kind of mocking. But yeah, so 5 stars from me. Coal Mountain. If it slipped through your fingers beforehand, go back and check it out on Stan. Enjoy.
I've got a question about the basement. Because I was taking the piss before when I said it was like Wayne's World, because I like you guys on the basement format. But James, it's in a basement. Yeah. What's with the sunglasses?
I actually do.
Dad and I are laughing because we've heard that question for 20 fucking years. It has nothing to do with the basement.
I normally actually. No, I wear my shades a lot. I do have some actual reasons for it, but also it's just because it makes me look. No, it's not true. No, my eyes actually bother me, especially if there's glare and light, like where I'm getting glare. You can see it on my thing. It bothers me, and I actually don't handle light well. So I'm a basement dweller, but I really should be in a cave somewhere. So that's why I wear the shades.
You are the Bono of this pop group.
No.
Well, now here's the question: if I'm Bono, which one of these guys is the Edge?
Well, that has to be Chad because he's got no hair.
Yeah, but
no. When when we were first starting out and James missed a couple episodes, I tried just as a gag to wear sunglasses on the show while he wasn't there in honor of him. I got a fucking headache. I couldn't do it. Saw that coming.
See, I get a headache without it. Now, that being real quick, I just want to say out loud the reason that I occasionally miss shows, I think I should be out in the open about this, is because I've injured my back. The reason I've injured my back is I get tired of carrying the show.
Ah!
All right, let's move on. You guys are unapologetic fans of Monty Python. I think that's well established. Who do you think is the MVP of the Python troupe?
I can tell you who the unsung hero is. I bet James has the same one.
My go-to is always, and it's the same thing. I will compare this also to the reason I always say Dan Aykroyd. I always cheer on Eric Idle because I think he has kept.
I bet Chad knew he was going to say Idle too.
He's kept the marketing going. I mean, say what you will, and
yeah, it really is. He's one of the unsung heroes. I really think
he's quite shameless though.
Well, but
he is.
But I love that. I think that's why it's really funny because I, despite all the jokes I make, I have pretty low self-esteem. But I'm always like, oh, that guy's hilarious because he doesn't, or at least.
Can you imagine, though, that maybe Michael Palin would ever show up in Christmas Vacation 2, Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure? Eric Idle did.
Because he'd be doing one of those fucking travel shows being nice to somebody for a year. I've read every one of his books. You know who to me, it's Terry G. It's Terry Gilliam. Because and I think he doesn't get enough credit. And it's not because I always want to be a director and he's a director. The reason I think it is because those shows, the abrupt endings, the sketch is done, it's done, do not work without that connecting fabric of his animation in the visuals.
That would have been my answer
to a whole other level. I
Terry G.
don't think Python's Python without. I mean, clearly they need all of them. Well, they didn't. They did the O2 without one of them, right? But to me, it's Terry G.
Yeah, I'll pay that. We're doing a Python, a post-Python movie episode coming up where we're going to talk about all of those movies that came after Monty Python that could qualify as Monty Python, stuff like Jabberwocky and Yellowbeard and Eric the Viking. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the best post-Python film?
I'll jump in on this one. So, man, I want to say that Yellowbeard is not a great movie, but there are scenes in that movie where I am on the floor laughing, just on the floor. Graham Chapman's delivery. But honestly, if I had to pick one, it would be Eric the Viking.
Yeah.
Do you throw Time Bandits in that too?
Oh well, then hold on.
Absolutely.
What about a fish called Wanda?
No.
Well, maybe. I mean, I threw you like 3 examples, but we're having a whole show.
And I'm gonna wipe away my
my
answer and say The Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
Ooh, it's good.
So I thought that's what Chad would say would be Munchausen because that's one of my favorite.
I didn't know we were counting that, but if we're counting that,
I mean, how do you count the connection? Because does it have at least 2 pythons in it? If so,
it's I mean, you could even say Wind in the Willows. Like it's got to have that maybe 2, maybe 3 point connection.
Then hands down, it's Munchausen. One of my favorite films of all time.
Yeah, to me, I'm torn between Time Bandits and Munchausen. I gotta admit, because both of them, and they're vastly different films. But I'm always, I
think Eric the Viking feels the most like a Python film, though. Almost like it was written whilst they were together.
Jones.
Yeah, I don't know. If you give me a fish called Wanda, I'm always going to have to say Fish Called Wanda. Because it's one of my favorite comedies of all time.
Hey, we love fish.
Would you say?
We love Fierce Creatures.
Yeah, I actually think Fierce Creatures is one of those that's underrated, and that's another one that got shit on way too much.
And by John Cleese shits on it too, and I'm like, why are you shitting on Fierce Creatures? We love it.
Directed by an Aussie.
Yeah,
Fred Skipsey.
Yeah, I just don't know why he shits on.
You guys know Python. Do you guys know The Goodies?
Heard that. Why have I heard that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so what you want to do after we talk is hit Google and look up The Goodies. They are very Python-esque, and they were 3 guys that started at university with the Python troupe. And when they left university, they went separate ways. And these 3 guys created a show called The Goodies. It's one of the funniest things you'll ever see. Very Python-esque, but much more family-orientated. And then you've got the Python guys. But The Goodies, look it up. every episode an absolute banger.
One of those is Tim Brooke Taylor, right? Because
who passed away about a month ago.
and it was also
Right.
part of you. If you like Monty Python, the Four Yorkshiremen skit in that last the 1948 show, which was a precursor of Python, which had Cleese, Marty Feldman, and Tim Brooke Taylor. They are three of the Four Yorkshiremen in the original version of the sketch. I love that. So yeah, Tim Brooke Taylor. Yeah.
What is the comedian's name that basically a lot of people say Python ripped off or at least took it to the next level? And depending on after Python blew up, he would either give you the one answer, the boys are doing well, or they ripped off my whole fucking act. What is his name?
Was it Spike Milligan?
It might be Spike Milligan. I think it is Spike Milligan. He was, his very absurdist humor sketches would just end, or he'd look at the camera and go, "This is the doctor's sketch," and then kind of go into
I
it.
think it was him. He's fantastic. The epitaph on his gravestone says, "I told you I was sick."
That's amazing.
I didn't know that.
All right. So before we wrap this
fantastic.
up, for people that have not listened to your show, where would you recommend they start? Is there a particular episode they should go to first?
Yeah,
it depends on what they're
That's
into.
one of the things that we're always shocked by is what people
not episode 1.
What people identify with, because one of the episodes that I went to go back and I think was really cool is we did an entire episode about why ghosts are jerks. Like when you look at ghosts, why are they always?
Isn't that episode?
It is. It's episode, and I was like, that's a very
Yes.
interesting topic of conversation. I think because outside of a certain friendly ghost, we don't have a lot of movies where it's just ghosts like, hey, let me help you make tea or something. They're all jerks, and I was like, that's interesting. That episode has done okay, but not a ton. What's our number one episode, guys?
It depends on if it's YouTube or what'd you say?
Private Detectives on YouTube. To me, that's. I mean, I love private detective films. I'm glad we did the episode.
But it's not the number one on the audio. What's the number one on the audio? What's the number one on the podcast version?
Oh, I'm not sure. I
I'd
tried
have
audio.
to look it up. But it's not private. It's two different. That cracks me up. I don't understand why there's two different number one.
Because
episodes.
and there's nothing overly visual about the private detective episode, but it is our number one on YouTube. And I love private detective films, but I don't know why.
Okay, Glenn, I'll answer your question because they're not going to. So if we're going to recommend one, I recommend the Cars episodes that we did, Cars and TVs and Cars and Movies. Those are some pretty good episodes. And then also, if you want to talk about a guest episode, man, I think we Bart Mixon or C. Courtney Joyner were a couple of our interviews that I would recommend.
Yeah, and it really depends on
anything with Mick Strawn, because Mick Strawn's amazing.
Well, I was saying it really depends on what you're into. Like if you're into horror films, obviously you want to hear from a horror guest. We just did the puppet Philip Huber. We had him as a guest. If you like Muppets and puppetry, obviously you should start there. So it depends on what you're into.
So, in other words, to answer my question, my listeners should just spin a bottle.
Well, I was going to say what they should do is go on Twitter and tag Joe and have him answer. They can send.
And just so you know, that is www.uhutwitter.com.
Thanks, I have a stutter. Thank you, Chad.
So back to your question, if I can give you I have a hard time with that because I don't particularly go back and listen to them. I enjoy most of them. There's some of them that I probably didn't enjoy as much as I do others, but a lot of the interviews are some of my favorites. And I just have to go back. I want to go back one of these days and start from the beginning once this is all said and done and then go through them. But I get now why people ask, what can you tell me about that episode that you were on and blah, blah, blah. And I go, I don't know. Fuck, I have no clue. I don't remember. So I really want to know what they're into.
Okay. Well, obviously the correct answer is Glenn from Fake Shemp. That episode is a belter, and everyone should start there.
That would have been smart if I would have just said that one. Chad's right though. Courtney Joyner, and Bill Malone and Peter Von Schally are three of my favorites. I think Bill Malone tells a fantastic story about his dad, him seeing the Beatles, William Malone, the director of House on Haunted Hill, and it all happening in one night and everything that went wrong. That has absolutely nothing to do with movies.
While
but
the
it's
strip
a
club burns.
fantastic
Yeah,
story.
this is all. It was a great story.
While the strip club burns with his dad and his mom. It is a fantastic story. He ended up getting arrested. check that out.
Well, guys, we are shit out of time, but thank you not only for spending time with me here today, but thanks for creating a bunch of fun-size episodes for us. We're having a great time listening to those.
No, actually, I had a blast doing those. I think we all three had a blast doing them.
Joe, Chad, and James, you guys are the stuff of Kentucky legends as far as we can see it. And again, thanks for being part of this humble Aussie debacle. We love having you on board, and we're going to have to do this again.
Sounds great.
Thank you, man. Appreciate
it. I'm back. Did I miss anything? I just did some of my own dirty work just then.
I think you might have been gone longer than you thought.
That's very possible. I do. I always admired that character Shitbreak in American Pie, because who wouldn't go home to who wants to take a shit in a public no.
Well,
no.
Don't stress it, dude. I carried it like a pro.
Excellent. So did I, if you know what I mean.
So here's the part where we recommend movies for everybody to watch. Some feedback last week from Black Belt. We had a couple of people message me and they're keen to track it down.
Oh, Red Belt.
What did I say?
Black Belt.
Well.
Which is better, technically.
That's right. Well,
I actually wondered why it wasn't called Black Belt. Like, why?
This
like
guy's
Red
not
Belt
as good as he could be. That's the problem,
right?
Isn't it?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But people have been keen to track it down. Look, it is available to rent or buy on Google Play, YouTube, and Apple TV. It's not on any streaming platform, though.
I think you can buy it from zavvi.com.au. You can get the UK import Blu-ray if you want physical.
And actually, the same goes for Hard Times. It did have a physical release on through Umbrella at one point in time, but now it's available on those same platforms.
Ah, excellent. Well worth the effort.
Right. So this week, I am going to go for a much different type of movie. I have this poster hanging in my office. I think it's one of the greatest coming-of-age movies of all time. Probably one of the most mischaracterized films of all time. It's 1979 Meatballs. Ha! And this one was directed by Ivan Reitman. It was the first time he and Harold Ramis and Bill Murray collaborated. It's also I would say, the godfather of summer camp movies. And just really quick, the premise of this one, if you don't know, a lonely kid is shipped away to summer camp by his parents in hopes that he would make some friends. He struggles to connect with everyone, and then with the help of a larrikin counsellor named Tripper, which is Bill Murray, the kid eventually finds his place, and his personal journey sort of culminates at the end of the camp with the typical end of camp games, which is a motive that every bloody summer camp movie uses these days. The reason I said this one is mischaracterized is because I think there's a reputation for this one being a screwball sex comedy, and there is none of that in there.
Isn't there? I thought there still is some kind of, camp counselor shenanigans going on in Meatballs.
You don't see much at all. It's a PG movie.
It's like a PG one. Yeah, it's not like it's not like Splits or
Screwballs or any of those.
Any of those kind of Screwballs, Screw Loose, Screwballs Academy.
I reckon it's just one of the best coming of age films around because it does have a very sort of subtle underlying drama going right through the whole lot of it, and this kid's story. And it's assisted by heavy-handed music at best, but the music itself kind of tells this kid's story because when he's sad, the music's sad.
Yeah.
It's something now we'd say, oh, that's really contrived. But I think at the time, it's it hit a spot. Certainly one of my favorites.
Isn't it also the first Bill Murray movie?
I think it's his first. It's his first starring role. Oh, because he was in that. What was the? Oh no, he was in like one of those sketch comedy ones, the Groove Tube.
Oh, like Groove Tube or like Loose Shoes or one of those.
But this would have been his first starring role for sure.
Right, because I remember reading that Caddyshack book, and they talk about him like coming off that set to go and do Caddyshack.
Yes, within the space of like 2 or 3 years, the amount of movies that all three of those guys made was just incredible. It's like a prolific time for comedy. But the reason I chose Meatballs is because Madman Entertainment are re-releasing it on DVD next month in sort of a special edition, I guess.
Are they doing a box set? Because for me, Meatballs doesn't come into its own until Corey Feldman appears.
Hey, I've got a real soft spot for part 2. That's a weird movie. It's got an alien in it.
Yeah. It's a classic of the genre.
And look, Meatballs 3 too is really weird. Like, that's the one with Patrick Dempsey, which is actually a direct sequel to the first one because it's the same character
Right.
who's now working on the docks at, like, you know, the marina
Yeah.
during the summer, and he's visited by a dead porn star who has been sent back to Earth. It's a Wonderful Lifestyle to make sure this kid gets laid. And it's one of those 80s movies where, like, there's a really rank kind of rape culture going on that's just sort of overlooked, you know, because he's a horny boy. It's all okay.
It's all okay. Like, why aren't they releasing this as a box set like they did with Porky's and Police Academy?
They bloody well should, mate.
They should, all of it. Like, these and all the Screwballs movies should all come out in a box set as well. And the Lemon Popsicle movies.
The fourth Meatballs, though, that's got a different title. They just retrofitted the title to fit it into a franchise. I think it was called, like, Last Resort or something like that.
Yeah. And there's a lot of there's a lot of jet skiing in that one and water skiing.
It's all jet skiing, mate.
Yeah. That's the competition between them and the snotty other camp, right?
Yeah,
it's a jet ski. It's a water sports.
Like two whole acts of the movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's yours?
My film this week is I just recently rewatched it. It was one of my all-time favorite films. It's a detective film called Harper. Harper. It stars Paul Newman. It was the first private detective movie he ever made. It's William Goldman's first script.
Yep.
And it was directed by someone who, as far as I know, I don't believe I've seen anything else he's ever directed. This guy Jack Smite, but it also stars Lauren Bacall, Julie Harris. Janet Leigh plays his kind of soon-to-be ex-wife. Pamela Tiffin from some of the best Elvis movies pops up. Robert Wagner, Strother Martin again turns up. Shelley Winters plays like an aging starlet, and basically, like, he's a private detective who's been hired by Lauren Bacall to find her wayward millionaire husband. Right. Who's gone missing. And though she doesn't really like him, when he gets drunk and disappears, he tends to give things away, and all she's really trying to do is outlive him so she can get all of his money, and so she doesn't want him giving anything away.
Well, I've not seen this one, so that sounds something like I should put on my list.
It is one of the coolest films ever made. Like, it's really good. It's based on those Ross MacDonald novels. This is based on the first one, The Moving Target. But they had to change the name of the character because they paid for the rights for the book, but not the character, or some nonsense like that. So they had to change it around or whatever. But and there is a sequel to it that came out many years later called The Drowning Pool, which I believe was the film where Don Johnson and Melanie Griffiths met, and he was like in his 20s and she was in her early teens.
Well, there is a reason why they get you to prep all the questions at Trivia Nights, mate.
I ask questions that not even I can answer without the internet.
Anyway, well, that is the end of the show, folks. But before we run, just letting you know that we're going to put a halt on the giveaways for a little while I try to catch up on previous winners. So there are the last few yet to receive their prizes, and that's on me. That's my bad. But rest assured, I'm on it, and we'll start giving away more stuff real soon. Thanks for another Ripper episode, Ben. Hope it was a good shit.
It certainly was.
And a tip of the hat to Jarrett, Guillermo, and Adam for their reliable weekly contributions. And a huge thank you to the Bonehead Weekly guys. They filled in for you, Ben, while you were away on business.
While I was taking care of business, James Belushi style. I'm glad it was James Belushi style and not Elvis Presley style. Yes. It was a close call.
So thanks to Joe, Chad, and James. We hope you enjoyed the conversation, and of course they'll be back next week with their fun size segment. And thanks to you, our loyal listeners. If not for you, there's no point doing this show. So once again, thanks for downloading. Please share us with your friends. And if you include the hashtag FakeShemp or the hashtag GoodMovieMonday, then people will be able to find us without going to too much effort. So to take us out, here's a song called American Girls by Homie from Meet the Deedles. And if the singer's voice sounds familiar, that would be because Homie was a one-off side project from Weezer frontman Rivers Cuomo. Is that how you pronounce his name? I think so. Have a great week, everyone. Behave yourself, stay safe, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Good Movie Monday.
close my eyes when I'm going to bed. Afraid you cracked the phone down over my head. Why are all American girls so rough? Damn, the girl can't ever hurt you enough. Lady, you knock me on my knees and I can't stand up. You got the look in your eye and smack my butt. Why are all American girls so rough? Why do all American girls act so tough? Why are all American girls